Thank you.
Good. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for standing if you're standing. And thank you, Christina and Tammy and Liz, for doing this project here. It's very cool. Can't have enough. We can't have enough galleries in East Aurora, right? Okay, so known, imagined, experienced, but it was the subtitle, a sense of place, that like was the hook that grabbed me, because in 1980 I had some work over in Italy, and a curator put me in a show called Genius Loci, or Loci. It's Genius, another word, Loci. And it's the guardian spirit of the place in Latin. And the thing is, I had this relationship with the building, 30 Essex Street in Buffalo, which still is the Essex Street Art Center, also known as the Ashford Hollow Foundation. And I started living and working there while I was waiting on tables at the Roycroft here. I would, in 1971, 72, wait on tables on the weekends here, and then like finagle a ride into Buffalo, because I relied on my shoes for transportation. And so yeah, like weekends, East Aurora, during the week in Buffalo at Ashford Hollow Foundation. And the thing is, I was, this thing. Okay, so Genius Loci. I have it for 30 Essex Street, and I have it for the Roycroft. You know, this, guardian spirit of the place. At Essex Street, I was, as a teenager, I went to Hutch Tech for graphic design and illustration. And I felt like I had, sort of pictorial space down. I thought I had technique down. In fact, my mother got her friends in East Aurora to commission me to make pictures of their homes. And, it was a cool gig, 25 bucks a pop, woo-hoo. That's why I'm so rich today. And the thing is that I went to Pratt, and at Pratt, my mind was a little bit blown by the art world in New York City. There was, we've all grown up here with the Albright. We knew abstract expressionism and pop, and I thought those things were bullshit because anybody could do them. And so when I went to New York and got the lay of the land, the commercial galleries, the museums, the magazines, the infrastructure, it was like, oh, now I get it. And the thing was, in the late 60s, conceptual art was kind of, there was pop, there was minimalism, there was conceptual art, and it was a challenge for me to go from, typical pictorial language to conceptual art, which was, we'll do crazy stuff. And so for me, the crazy stuff was like Saul LeWitt, like his wall drawings. He writes down, actually when I was doing hall walls with Robert Longo, we went to Saul LeWitt's studio, and he sat down and he wrote out instructions for a wall drawing that we did at hall walls. So this idea of using the wall as the canvas, as it were, was a big deal for me. So the thing is, I glued photos of my eyes on the wall in the space I was living in at 30 Essex. And in doing that, I felt like I changed the whole pictorial space thing, like I was inside of the walls. So it wasn't about, me and there, it was about me and there, somehow in another way. just to jump into the East Aurora thing, I came back to East Aurora 10 years ago to be my mother's driver for her her exit. And she, in fact, died in 2017, and she was a character in the town. Those who know her know that she was a character in the town. And the thing is, once I got here, you know, initially John McHenry gave me some free studio space in high temp fab, which was fab, but my mother, as a docent at the Roycroft, said, hey, they've got studios. They bought, the Roycroft Campus Corporation bought the print shop back from the county or whoever, and there's studio space there. This is 200 footsteps away from, you know, where I was sleeping to where I could be working. So yeah, 2015 June, I jumped into the space and I started my public painting workshop. Let's see, I've digressed or progressed or something. The thing is, by being in the print shop and absorbing this ethos of Roycroft, this guardian spirit of the place is really, you know, welled up in my work. So that was the hook that got me here. So what have I learned in the past 10 years? Well, what I came back to East Aurora with was this weird sense of space. And somebody made fun of the word liminal recently about how, you know, it's an art world jargon thing. But there really is something about the space between two things, liminal space. You look up the definition and that's what liminal space is. I get a kick out of psychoanalytic theory and literary criticism, which sometimes sort of crosses paths. There is this thing called affect theory, you know, affect like affection, that is, there's a concern for pre-verbal, you know, there's, you know, you walk in here and you go, and that is the affect. And so I'm claiming the space of affect through sticking my eyes on the walls 50 years ago. And then it was important to me to not do stuff like I've seen before. So this photo represents these cutout figures that were kind of life-size, you know, 5 to 6 feet tallish, but cut out and made out of collages. I didn't know what I was doing then. I mean, I wanted to do something where I didn't know what I was doing. And so they are actually, they have genitals. If you look closely, they have genitals. So they're gendered. They have the eyes from the wall before, and they led into a practice of making group portraits of these cutout figures. Anyway, at my moment of jumping into artisthood, there were a couple of things I realized. One was, none of us know when we're going to die. I mean, I could die right now. And the importance of getting the work done is like, that's the thing. I mean, you got to get the work done. If the work isn't done, you weren't there. So, getting the work done was really important. The oeuvre, O-E-U-V-R-E, that French word for body of work, that's the thing. I mean, you're always making another brick in the wall. Each work is one you know, cell of the bigger structure. The other thing is, you know, like with this idea of making more work, there's the trajectory. You know, my trajectory was from childhood doing sort of typical, you know, I'm the subject and the object is out there, to intermingling through this space of affect or liminality. And I think of my life as having, my artistic life as having four periods. There's research and development, 1970 to 1984, and then efflorescence of 1985 to 1999, and then rustication in Rhode Island from 2000 to 2013, and then tenacious resilience since I've been here in 2014. The efflorescent period was when I was doing big finger paintings they looked like gestural abstraction, but they had this foundation that is different than the abstract expressionists. The rustication thing was like, my wife wanted to have a place in Rhode Island, so we went to Rhode Island. I mean, we kept our apartment in New York, but my studio moved from, nobody ever calls me. I'll have to talk later. Yeah, okay. No, thank you, bye-bye. Sorry. Never happens. So after this efflorescence of making gestural abstraction in New York, moving to Rhode Island, now I had a studio that was like ground level, in this, a mile from the shoreline, nature, a garden. It was, an abrupt change, Anyway, I made paintings on the surface, on the ground, as they call it, where the sky met the earth, where the water met the earth. I could go on about that, but and I also brushed. I conspicuously did not use brushes after I was 20 for a long period of time. I either finger painted or used big finger tools to make the work. But Rhode Island was different. And the thing is, when I came here, every time that I changed studios, it's highly traumatic. I mean, the change from New York to Rhode Island was like a year's worth of like, I'm not working, I can't get my act together. Same with coming here, shut down the studio in Rhode Island, pack up everything, move it to Western New York. Took me some time to get up and running. And I wanted to find, I don't like canvas. Canvas, I made many works on canvas, but it's always seemed weird to me. I needed to find a different material, and 1218. So the thing is, I found expanded PVC. It's plastic, sheets of plastic that sign painters use to make their work. And so I began to work at McHenry's building for a while, then got the studio here, and then within the context of East Aurora, I wanted to do this public participatory project. Since I made the big fingers to make my gestural abstraction, I frequently had workshop situations where I would invite the public to fulfill the concept of my kid could do that. The cliched response to a museum experience of like, well, anybody can do that. So I wanted to make a utopian situation where I would provide the art materials to anybody in the public who wanted to make the paintings. And what resulted was public painting workshop was about doing one painting per season and getting as many people to add a layer of paint to the painting. Then at the end of the season, I would subtract. They added, I subtracted. through grinding and, you know, and polishing. So, and then, after I ground and polished the painting, I would make an art history book to include all of the participants with me in art history. So the book documents, there it is, there's Dorothy. She was the very first painter. And then people at the Roycroft and everybody, 800 people over, it ended last September. And yeah, so there have been 30 paintings, and here is the last one, summer 2023, and it was fun. And the thing was, I became compelled to be in the studio all the time, so I was available to whoever would be passing by. I mean, one of the things with the Roycroft was the its destination, you know, a national historic landmark. People come there looking for stuff to do. I had stuff for them to do. Some of them didn't. Some of them thought it was a stupid idea and walked away. That's okay. That's art for you. Anyway, so there were in coming to Western New York, I thought there are three kinds of Clough. There are Clough seasons, and there are Clough places. The places, in 2014, the Albright invited me to do one of their public art initiatives through Erie County and so on. So that was the Hamburg project. I thought, this is great. I got a thing. I can take this everywhere. I can go, around the world to museums doing this project. So I made a book about the Hamburg project. I made a thing to send to other museums. Waiting, no response, and no more response. Anyway, there was Art Omai is it's like a sculpture grounds, 400 acres and a dedicated museum space. They invited me in 2017, so that was the second one. And then here, the Roycroft Clough Places project. 2 years ago for Founders Day, there were 40 people, all documented here, who helped me make this painting, and I thought, yeah, this sucker's gonna sell and float my boat for a long time. It's still available, and the Clough Places seems to conclude with this, the third of the project. The other type of Clough was Clough numbers. So here's a Clough number 878. Clough 878. So I've made over 1,000 Clough. I use the number 1,000 in a totally different context. Let's see, how do I segue this? Going back to the spirit of the place, I'm an art lover, and I have many favorite artists. I have 1,000 favorite artists. And so going into this spirit of the place thing, I think that what I'm doing is I'm inculcating the spirits of my top 1,000 artists into the essence of my work, if you will. Okay, so there are over 1,000 Clough numbers. There are over 1,000 top favorite artists that I have going. Let's see. Orient myself here. Where's my nose wiping thing? Here it is. Sorry, cold man, cold weather. What can I say? Okay, yeah, the three types of Clough. Okay, now, just before I left Rhode Island, I did this one painting for 2011 that was a punctuation on 40 years of work. And the title of the painting is Oh My Goodness, And what I did was I painted images related to world historical religions. And I was thinking about goodness. And the paint, there are 4 states of the painting. There's the painting itself, which is priceless. There's the print of the painting, which is a collector price point. There's the book, which is a consumer price point. And then there's a video of all of the, there are 3,700 images. You know, there were 20 completed pictures, like, well, there's for the Zoroastrians. And so in the course of making this, I would photograph the process. I would sand down between the religions, and I would obsessively photograph details. So I had 3,700 details from the making of this painting, which are online as an animation. Crucial point that I didn't point out before, going back to when I formulated my project, is I have this thing called pep-fog, which is the photographic epic of a painter as a film or a ghost, which is to say that every image that I've made, whether it's photographic or painted, if it was sequenced like a flipbook animation, it would be a thing. I mean, recently I've been thinking about Disney animations, how really where I'm coming from is Fantasia and Alice in Wonderland and the stuff that, you know, I was born in 1951, you know, you'd actually go to the movie theater to see those things instead of like going to, you know, YouTube and pulling it up. Anyway, so the oeuvre, the body of work, tens of thousands of images, and this is one, you know, one capsule where one painting represents 3,700 images. So the thing is, after I had done the Clough places, Clough seasons, Clough numbers, this painting was lurking in the background of like, I want to like grab something from this to get its spirit into my work. So, this is a Clough number, and I derived from the sort of, you know, pictorial structure of oh my goodness, this overlay that I was, I had this, I mean, I cannot say that I'm not interested in making some money. I had this idea of the goose that would lay the golden egg. You know, like you make a painting machine, pardon me, make a painting machine like Warhol's, and just, you know, what did he make? 100,000 objects are out in the world with Warhol's name on it. He, you know, he succeeded in a way that I haven't. So I wanted to make this painting machine where actually I would use the stencil as a printing element. And what happened was that as it was really compelling to me. And the fun part is, I call it passive or latent cinema, where the viewer is the doer. You can, you know, if you own this, hint, you can take it home and mess around with it. You can make a different painting many times. Okay, so gardens and gates. The numbers became gardens, and the stenciling thing became a gate. And due to the fact that I was working in a few different scales, like 24 by 32 was a pretty standard one. However, 8 by 10 was, you know, I did a lot more 8 by 10 paintings than bigger ones. So the thing is, I started playing around with the gardens and gates. Kind of annoying. Gardens and gates, and the I have to make a magical alignment here. There's my magical alignment. So in making the gates for the 8 by 10s, I found that the cutout pieces, the throwaway parts, were kind of compelling. Voila! No, like this. So there's my cutout. And what happened was, I thought, you know, what do you call it? Paper soldiers and paper dolls and that kind of slotted sculpture is cool. And so this is going on last summer in the I kind of took over the new art center, the Castilia Art Center in the print shop at the Roycroft, and so I had this eureka moment of like slotted sculpture, man. It occurred to me to make big slotted sculpture, and you know, this scale said, wouldn't it be cool if this was 10 feet tall and you were, you know, like he was out on the lawn and you could play with it, you could play amongst it, and it just made me think of many things I could do with slotted sculpture. And one of the things that I noticed, I mean, my gestural abstraction stuff is kind of rooted in pareidolia, which is the effect of seeing the bunnies in the clouds. You know, Leonardo spoke about a stained wall as being suggestive of imagery. I mean, maybe it happens more for some people than others, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So the thing is that with all these 8 by 10s, you know, I knew these figures were floating around in them. But this thing made me think, I gotta go to these 8 by 10s and start finding, you know, liberating the figures. So it's like the 1,000 Clough numbers I came to view as my imaginary cosmos. And that within the imaginary cosmos, there are all of these critters. You know, I mean, back to, where'd those guys go? Well, anyway, those weird figures, I call them paint creatures, you know, from the late 70s that I've lost, gone forever. So the thing is, yeah, there they are. So these were paint creatures, and it's like they foreshadowed, or they pointed to finding Jaggy Smudge here, and that the entire 1,000 Clough body of work that I've done here over the last 10 years holds uncountable numbers of Jaggy's friends and relatives. So I sent a note to Buffalo Games a couple of days ago and said, hey, come and hear my talk, because I have this idea that's going to make your company jillions of dollars. They wrote back that it wasn't really up their alley. Yet again, my heart is broken. In any case, the thousand paintings stand for somehow me to put on the internet and invite people to locate Jaggy's friends and relatives. And what I really realized is that they should be, that these things, you know, in their full-scale manifestation, they're just backdrops. They're photographic backdrops for the public to play with and photograph themselves in front of. So my photo contest here with a prize of undetermined nature is that I invite you all to photograph yourself around I'm calling this the crucible of creation. I mean, part of my spirit of the place at the Roycroft is that, you know, the circumstances, you know, what my economics were, what my physical situation of, from where I slept to where I worked, the physical space I worked in became a crucible of creation. So I've titled the, you know, my thing for the show, which is these two slotted sculpture things, the crucible of creation. You know, I think of my scenario in the Roycroft as a crucible of creation, and Jaggy here is jumping in to proclaim the liberation of the characters from the 1,000 images of the Clough imaginary universe. Let's see what I forgot. Nah, that's the wrong paper. I know. I have a bad. Usually I forget this when I come up with a talk and I have a piece of paper that's supposed to remind me of all the stuff that I would forget. I usually forget the piece of paper. You know, I mean, think puppet theater, think creches, think railroad villages. I mean, this is where my mind's gone. I've tried to avoid sculpture because it turns into a storage problem. And what's great about slotted sculpture is that it can, if it comes apart readily, it can all like go in, you know, go on the shelf and not be the storage problem that sculpture typically is. Anybody that's been to my studio knows that I like rocks. And the problem with rocks is that they're heavy. And they don't store very well. They don't go into flat files. Now, and you might get a kick out of this. The card for the show here, I decided, lent itself to its own sort of character within the cosmos. And so I was screwing around with the announcement card and in Photoshop, and so here's a space monster who has come to play amongst the other elements of Clough. The scale change, you know, from little to, you know, my grandiose, unrealized, you know, larger than life. I mean, Calder comes to mind. You think about Calder's, you know, 2D, 3D works just blow my mind, and I would really like to carry it much further. Okay, so tenacious resilience, 50-some years trying to make my body grand, you know, my oeuvre, brick by brick by brick by brick by thousand painting, pep fog, photographic epic of a painter as a filmer of ghosts. I haven't even spoken about the photography. When I photograph, I take a picture here and a picture here, so that when you cross your eyes, you get a three-dimensional image. And I realize that there are two things. There's 3D scanning, where actually a stereo, I put a stereo pair into a 3D program to get a wire frame of the rock wall, and it worked. I mean, you know, if you know 3D computer stuff, you know what I'm talking about with this wireframe thing. Pardon me. And then the other thing was virtual reality with these stereo images. Somewhere down the line, they can be, when they get integrated into PepFog, the animation, the 3D stuff it'll show up 3D. It'll be cool. I don't think I'll see that, but I'll leave some instructions. I don't know if my grandkids are going to be up for that, but who knows what goes on with grandchildren, right? Maybe that's the best way to end. Who knows what will happen with the grandkids. You can ask questions if you have any. Peter?
I like the Jaggy Smudge imagery, and I wonder if it's an intentional genius loci. At the print shop, it sounds like one of the many defects that can happen in a print shop.
Well, intentionality is critical. I mean, on my point of realization, epiphany. In my epiphany, I realized that what I'm looking for is a structure of intentionality, which would deliver the PepFog, oeuvre. And one of the things with working, coming out of abstract expressionism is, is it spontaneous or is it designed? And there are the 10th century Chinese painters who were very subtle with, like, an ink blot, a mark takes meaning after the fact. And my embrace of abstract expressionism is that I don't want to be a designer. I mean, once I came into this situation where I know that I can design with the elements that I spontaneously did, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, here. I know what happened here, and it came to this, and then in playing with my technique, I realized that if I pour the paint a certain way, it's gonna, a certain thing is gonna happen, which is sort of the development of technique. And how does that relate to the Roycroft? Well, I mean, specifically, I think of I'm talking about a neo arts and crafts situation where the painting equals arts and the cutting out equals craft. I mean, it's kind of simplistic, overly simplistic, perhaps, but there's a certain reality to it. I mean, one of the overwhelming feelings I've gotten from the Roycroft is that Hubbard came up with a situation where 500 people were employed using their hands to get their asses through life, making money and creating the ethos of Roycroft Arts and Crafts, and it's like, it's kind of miraculous that could happen. I've tried to get the copper shop to come around and push my stuff, but they prefer imagery more closely associated with 100 years ago, and I get that. They're not you know, I feel like I'm breaking new ground. I feel like, I mean, you know, back 50 years ago, my allegiance was with the avant-garde. You know, the idea of originality and art history and, you know, some sense of progress through art history. You know, I actually think of these things as post-impressionist, Fauvist, Cubist, Surrealist, Abex, postmodern. You know, I as an art lover subscribe to that kind of art history. And you know, how does that work in terms of intentionality? Going back to, maybe I didn't even get to the idea of the trajectory. You know, the fact of I'm an artist and I need to stay on the path. I need to go point to point to point, whatever. You know, I mean, there's intentionality and then there's chance. And how does it, you know, what I tried to demonstrate here is the chance of the thing falling on the ground. The thing that came out of here. You know, when that thing that came out of here made me think, slotted sculpture. Dang. You know, that's, you know, I think there are two kinds of creativity. There's the creativity of like actually doing stuff like food prep and gardening and weaving, and you know, there are those things that are, you know, the doing of them is creative. But then there's the eureka moment of you know, like this thing made me think of something different. And you know, slotted sculptures, you know, look online, there's a million slotted sculptures, make it with your kid, blah blah blah. But for me it's different because it's like it has this trajectory of coming out of my development in a way that, you know, is, you know, there is the gestalt of the oeuvre, that there's something going on there, you know, and that within the development you can, you know, like I in 1969 I started looking at Duchamp. Duchamp's oeuvre is complex and it fulfills many rooms, as it were. And then I moved on to Picasso, and same thing. I mean, you got 70, 80 years worth of work that you can chart the development, you can throw it against his personal life, and you can derive a sort of conceptual feeling out of what the body of work represents. How's that for an answer? It's really kind of you to be so patient and to come out. I don't like to go out. I apologize. It's a blanket apology for not going to openings and people's presentations, and I'm ashamed of that. But I'm also old and I have an excuse. So, ta-da! I made a mess. Now I gotta finish my cooking.
I had to switch the battery about 30 minutes or so into the top for here.
Thank you.
In case there's a break, like 30 seconds or 20.
There are many things for sale.
You have to come back and get it.